What if the price of whiskey actually told the truth? A $21 bottle like Johnnie Walker Red Label and a $65 Macallan 12 are both Scotch. They are worlds apart. Unlike wine, Scotch is tightly regulated, no added sugar, no artificial flavors, just spirit, water, and optional caramel color. So the real difference comes down to age, ingredients, and craftsmanship, and as the price rises, those factors genuinely improve. Let's start at the bottom of the price ladder. Dewar's White Label is the cheapest bottle in this ranking and one of the top-selling blended scotches in the United States. It has been produced since 1899, which is a real heritage, and the brand is transparent enough to explicitly disclose E150, a caramel coloring on its ingredient list, alongside water and the whiskey distillates. That transparency earns some credit. Here's the honest truth about what $20 buys you in Scotch: a no-age statement blend. No-age statement means the youngest whiskey in that bottle can legally be 3 years old. 3 years is the minimum required to call something Scotch at all. At that age, the spirit has not had time to fully integrate with the wood. The barrel-derived antioxidants are minimal. The harsh byproducts of fermentation, acetaldehyde in particular, have not been fully aged out. Dewar's does have one distinguishing process: double aging, where the blend rests further in oak casks after the individual whiskeys are married together. This adds a modest degree of extra barrel contact and does contribute slightly more smoothness and integration than a standard no-age statement blend. It is a genuine differentiator. It just does not overcome the fundamental limitation of having no age statement. At $20 to $27, Dewar's White Label is a decent cocktail mixer. As a straight drink, it is an entry point, not a destination. And here is the key thing to watch as we go up this list. At the very top, you will see a whiskey that does not need caramel coloring at all. We are very far from that right now, so let us take the smallest step up and see what actually changes. Level 2, Johnnie Walker Red Label. Johnnie Walker Red Label is the best-selling Scotch whiskey in the world. Over 21.6 million cases were sold globally in 2024. It is, by volume, the most consumed Scotch on Earth. It is also, from a health and quality standpoint, one of the weakest options on this list. Like Dewar's, Red Label carries no age statement, which means the youngest whiskey in the blend can be 3 years old. It blends up to 35 different whiskeys, including significant proportions of grain whiskey from column stills. Column still grain whiskey is cheaper to produce, contributes less flavor complexity, and delivers fewer barrel-derived polyphenols than malt whiskey. It is chill-filtered, which removes some of the fatty acids and polyphenols that came from the barrel in the first place. Here is what most people get wrong about Red Label. Its market dominance is a function of price, availability, and decades of marketing, not quality. Blind taste comparisons consistently find it noticeably thinner and harsher than its sibling Black Label, with more industrial palate notes. At $21 to $25, it is best treated as a mixer, something thoroughly diluted in ice and soda where the harshness disappears into the drink. Red Label and White Label occupy similar price territory. White Label edges slightly ahead on smoothness due to the double aging process, but both are firmly in the entry tier, products defined by what they are not rather than what they are. So we have spent a bit more money and essentially stayed in the same place, which raises the obvious question: when does the price actually start to matter? That shift begins at level 3. This is where the price ladder starts to mean something real. At $25 to $35, Chivas Regal 12 is the first bottle in this ranking with a guaranteed age statement. Every whiskey in the blend is at least 12 years old. Not some of them, all of them. That is a legal guarantee written on the label, and it changes the health profile significantly. Here's why. 12 years in oak means 12 years of antioxidant extraction, ellagic acid, polyphenols, and other barrel-derived compounds accumulate over time. A 12-year minimum blend has had 4 times as long in the cask as the youngest legal Scotch, and that difference shows up in the glass and in the chemistry. The heart of Chivas 12 is Strathisla single malt from Speyside, one of Scotland's oldest working distilleries, blended with grain whiskey and other malts. The result has genuine wood-driven character, honey, vanilla, orchard fruits, hazelnut. This isn't artificial enhancement. This is what time in a barrel actually does to spirit. Like most Scotch blends, Chivas 12 does use E150A caramel coloring for batch consistency. And it's a blend, not a single malt, so you're still getting some cheaper grain whiskey in the mix. But at $25 to $35, this is the most significant value jump on this list. You're crossing from the NAS tier into the age-stated tier, and that matters more than almost any other single factor in Scotch quality. And once you've crossed into 12-year territory, the next question is, how much better can it get within the same age bracket? That's exactly what Level 4 answers. If this is changing how you look at the whiskey shelf, hit subscribe. I break down what's actually in your food and drink every video. Back to it. If Red Label is the worst version of Johnnie Walker, Black Label is where the brand actually earns its reputation. Same company, same blending tradition, $4 extra at the low end, and a completely different product. Black Label is a 12-year minimum blend, sourcing whiskies from all 4 corners of Scotland, smoky Islay malts like Caol Ila, complex Speyside expressions, and lighter Highland notes. The result is one of the most layered blended Scotches at this price point, viscous, rich, with dark fruit and a signature peat smoke that arrives late in the finish. Blind taste tests consistently find Black Label dramatically more complex and drinkable than Red, with far more viscosity, richness, and fruitiness. The 12-year minimum means meaningfully more ellagic acid and polyphenols than its no-age statement sibling. The Islay malt contribution adds a diverse antioxidant profile that comes from peat-influenced barley and different oak interactions. Here's what's still the same as Red Label: E150A, caramel coloring, and chill filtration. These are Diageo house practices across the Johnnie Walker range. At $30 to $45, Black Label competes directly with Chivas 12. They are both 12-year blends in similar price territory. Black Label edges ahead through greater complexity and a broader geographic blend, more regions, more character, more of what Scotch can actually be. But up to this point, everything we have looked at has still been a blend. Level 5 is where that changes, and it is one of the biggest upgrades on this entire list. We have just crossed a line that matters more than the price jump suggests. Levels 1 through 4 were all blended Scotch whiskies, products that mix grain whiskey from column stills with malt whiskey from pot stills. Starting here, we are in single malt territory, and that is a meaningful upgrade. The Glenlivet 12 is the #1 selling single malt Scotch whiskey in the United States. 445,000 9-liter cases were sold in 2023. Single malt means 100% malted barley from a single distillery distilled in pot stills. No column still grain whiskey in the blend, no dilution of character with anonymous grain spirit. For health purposes, this matters because malted barley is richer in antioxidant precursors than the mixed grains used in column still production. Combined with 12 years of maturation in both American and European oak casks, the Glenlivet 12 delivers a higher concentration of ellagic acid than most of the blended Scotches below it on this list. The whiskey is lighter in style, with Speyside signature pear drops, tropical fruit, marzipan, and a clean vanilla finish. It reflects genuine Speyside terroir, not industrial flavor engineering. Two downsides worth naming. E150A caramel coloring is used, and the whiskey is chill filtered. These are common practices, even at single malt level. They are not deal breakers, but they are worth knowing. At $33 to $45, the Glenlivet 12 is the most accessible entry point into single malt Scotch in the American supermarket. That alone makes it one of the most important bottles on this list. Now here is where things get subtle. Because once you are in single malt territory, the differences do not come from age or category anymore. They come from how the whiskey is actually made behind the scenes. Level 6 is where that distinction shows up. Glenfiddich is the world's most awarded single malt Scotch whiskey. It is also, unlike every other brand in this ranking, still entirely family-owned, and that matters more than most people realize. William Grant & Sons has operated independently since 1887, running on what they call a barley-to-bottle philosophy. They have on-site coopers who maintain each cask individually. In an industry where large conglomerates like Diageo and Pernod Ricard manage their barrel programs at industrial scale, Glenfiddich's individual cask approach means more attention to wood quality, and wood quality is the single biggest driver of antioxidant content in aged Scotch. Glenfiddich 12 is matured in American and European oak, drawing its signature fresh pear fruitiness, honeyed complexity, and gentle oak spice from high-quality casks. The family-owned model creates less pressure to cut corners on cask selection than you would find at a publicly traded spirits conglomerate optimizing for quarterly results. Here is what the marketing will not tell you. The difference between Glenfiddich 12 and the Glenlivet 12 on paper looks small. Both are Speyside single malts. Both are 12-year minimum. Both use E150A and chill filtration. The real difference is in the cask stewardship behind the scenes, individual attention versus industrial management. That shows up in consistency and depth of character. At $35 to $53, Glenfiddich 12 is widely available at Total Wine, Costco, and most major supermarkets. It is one of the most reliable bottles at this price point anywhere in the world. And now we arrive at the top of the ladder, where it is no longer about doing things better, it is about removing things entirely. No coloring, no shortcuts. Level 7, the Macallan 12 Double Cask. At $50 to $65, the Macallan 12-year Double Cask is the most expensive bottle in this ranking. It is also the only one on this list that contains 0 additives. Not fewer additives. 0. The Macallan Double Cask is produced to fully natural color. The gold and amber hue you see in the bottle comes entirely from sherry-seasoned oak casks, not from E150A caramel coloring. That is the only bottle in this entire video where that is true. And it tells you something important. Macallan's cask program is consistent and high quality enough that they do not need a colorant to standardize the product. The barrel does the work. Here is why sherry casks matter for health specifically. Sherry-seasoned oak is widely regarded as the most antioxidant-rich aging environment in Scotch production. Sherry casks impart more ellagic acid, polyphenols, and resveratrol, the same compound found in red wine, than standard bourbon oak or plain American oak casks. Macallan uses both American and European sherry-seasoned oak, the double cask in the name, maximizing the uptake of these compounds across the maturation period. The result? Whiskey Advocate gave it 93 points. International Whiskey Authority Paul Pacult called it simply the best 12-year-old single malt around. At $65, you are paying for something that genuinely cannot be made more cheaply. You cannot fake 12 years in premium sherry-seasoned oak. You cannot engineer natural color from an industrial tank. The price reflects real time, real wood, and the absence of any shortcut. It is the only additive-free, naturally colored sherry cask, single malt, widely available in American supermarkets, and it is not particularly close. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments which category you want me to break down next.